Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. Today is April 12th, 2023. This is level 2 of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, lesson 15, and it's all about cancer. And I joke like the fun topic of cancer, not very jokingly, because I think that almost every one of us has someone in our lives, or maybe yourself directly, who's been affected by this or afflicted by this, or maybe you've lost someone, or maybe you've lost a pet. It's actually can be quite a distressing topic, but I want to talk about it in a way that hopefully is empowering and not merely distressing. I want to emphasize the sense that cancer is not merely the end result of a random genetic mutation, nor is it something that you are genetically fated or determined to have or to suffer from if your ancestors have it or had it. And also to offer to you the best effective tools for preventing it, treating it, and basically living a life that supersedes the possibility of you being an experiencer of it. I sent out my notes in the email invite, and I also said, and I mean it, I'm pulling up my notes right now, because this topic is so relevant to so many people, like I invite and encourage, share my notes. If you know someone who's dealing with this or family members dealing with this, and you feel it's appropriate, it's not going to freak them out, share my notes, share the archive of this video, help as many people as you possibly can with this information, because the main emphases here are cancer is not merely a genetic mutation. It is an intergalactic invader, an invader entity, a negative thought entity, or partially formerly embodied presence that is from an otherworldly civilization, not civilization, organized presence, for lack of, because they're not civilized, a culture, a grouping of concerted individuals who work together to do this. So not random mutation is you're being acted upon by a group of consciousnesses that are malevolent and have a negative intention, that it's not random. And in my notes, I talk a lot about the emotional connection as to why some people experience cancer and some people don't. But I also want to never have people play the blame game and be like, you got cancer, I blame you, you deserved it, and you thought this and you felt that, and that's why it came inside of you. Really, no, because at this point we are so surrounded by electromagnetic fields that affect our chakras, our time body, and our natural DNA behavior, that it's something that's a huge part of our environment and is not merely tied to your inner emotional state or your thought form patterns. And then finally, emphasis what to do about it. I'm a huge proponent of cannabis, and cannabis can be psychoactive. And for some people that can be overwhelming in the mental state that it creates, or the distorted perception or elevated or expanded perception that it creates. However, raw cannabis juice is not psychoactive, does not change your thought processes, but has an amazing neuroprotective, that means protecting your nerves, cellular somatic protection, protecting all of your healthy cells, and general vitality uplift that's appropriate for anyone. You can give raw cannabis juice to a tiny baby or to a person who's 100 years old, and it's not going to interfere with any other medications, metabolic experiences that they're having. You can drink it and drive a car safely and, use your mind, and you will not be, quote unquote, tripping out or anything like that. Raw cannabis juice. And there's a big connection between when cannabis and cannabinoids were taken out of the human food supply, and that happened roughly after World War II, skyrocketing incidence of cancer. So let me just get into what the body of my notes is about for today. This also relates to interdimensional entities or non-alive beings. And hold on, just admitting someone to the meeting. Non-alive beings who are also defined as corporations. Corporations are, we think of them here as businesses, like a purposeful administrative structure that is profit driven. It is that, and it is also more, in that corporations represent non-embodied entities. So I am an embodied entity. So I'm Aurora, I'm a non-embodied entity, I'm a waveform presence, and I could play some music. Dun, 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 I'm Aurora, I'm a waveform presence, and I'm that. I'm also Aurora, a physical embodied person, drinking my superfood coffee smoothie over here. And metabolizing and having a vested interest in the biological realm and in sustaining the biological realm. But a major point that I make in my notes is that corporations are only, they are entities, but they are not embodied entities. They do not have a vested interest in the maintenance of somatic cellular health or community or ecosystems, or even maintaining the existence of the planet upon which they function. And that's very, very, very big stuff. They don't care about the earth because they are not invested in the continuation of the earth. They don't care about the life forms that combine to create complex ecosystems on the earth. So literally, they don't care if it becomes a radioactive, nuclear ash hellhole, any kind of thing like that. They certainly do not care about the people who consume their products or are affected by their products. And corporations are truly only focused on maintaining their own power structure, their own status quo, maintaining their own existence state. I can't even say existence. Existence is in air quotes, their own semi-existence. And that there's a working together of corporations to create carcinogens in this world. And the corporations are these non-corporeal entities who create chemicals that are portals for consciousness to enter through the DNA code into physical embodied experience. So your DNA is an antenna. That is really at the basis of my work, and especially my work with Flying Rainbow Lasagna, or as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the sense that your DNA has behavior, it has patterning, the behavior and the patterning is unique to you, and that it is a like a tuner, like a radio tuner, or the capacity to focus on certain levels of reality, and that there are different levels of reality that your DNA behavior can make you focus on, some of which we would consider to be divinely oriented, paradise, coherent light form, coherent light family. I talk about your chakras as being centers of sentience, light beings, that is one level of being. And then there are also these occupants of the membrane of death, or non-corporeal entities, some of whom have never been alive, never alives, some of whom have been alive and are consciousness residues. And the point is, they exist like on the sidelines or the periphery, not in the area that we know as life in terms of the time field, but they would like to influence the areas known as life and the living. So you are alive, you, my beautiful audience, are alive. You have beautiful multicellular bodies. You have passed the audition and you are incarnated. You are here. That's a wonderful privilege, and you did something right. Like, thumbs up to you. And if you've stayed alive for 10 or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or however long you've been here, congratulations, because you have done a lot of successful navigating through the time field to maintain your cellular presence and to continue I want to say gushing. There's like when your DNA does its thing, you kind of like gush and move, and like you're propelled forward endlessly in this dynamic state through time. And these other things that are on the periphery, they are not being propelled through time. They do not have life force energy, but what they do have is a desire to access life force energy and or to influence the events in the time field, in the area that we would call the area that is alive, where aliveness happens. So what they do is they create portals, which are vulnerabilities or opportunities through which they can influence genetic behavior and even create events. So big takeaways for today, for today's presentation. Your DNA, hi Lucy, so good to see you. Thank you for tuning in from your desk. Lucy's got a very busy schedule all the time, so we're very pleased that you take time out of your work to tune in with us. Portals as being connection to certain events and activities. So when we talk about DNA, this is not merely something that is a protein strand that determines if you have brown eyes, like I do, or whatever, brown hair, or attached or non-attached earlobes, like basic physical characteristics. That is a reductionist viewpoint of what DNA is. That is a real limitation right now in human objective materialist science. DNA, as I said, is an antenna. It both receives consciousness and allows the user, wearer, experiencer, but I don't know what we would call you. You're both user and admin of your DNA system of your body. It allows you to experience and contribute towards certain events in time. So these patternings that your DNA is performing at all times as your consciousness is propelled through time, they're non-random patternings, and they are woven into the fabric of space-time consciousness. So as I begin to get into the backstory of this particular disease, that is genetic disease that is known as cancer, please comprehend and emphasize the fact that this is a destabilization or a dis-ease of time itself, and that it relates even beyond distortion of the physical body in terms of creating states of ill health or manifestations of tumors or repurposing of life force energy, because that is what cancerous tumors do. They take life force from the healthy cells, put it towards unhealthy cells, and instead of using that life force to create structures of coherence and longevity that help keep you moving through time, they create things that's like a brick wall that you're going to run into, smash, kapow, you're no longer moving through time. This could be anything from, tumors to various forms of destabilization in the body. It's a disease of time, and time is an alive being. So when I talk about this complex interwoven fabric of events, that is the fabric of space-time consciousness, that if you are a person of quantum, if you are predilected, if you have an interest in learning about what we call quantum reality and observership and what is happening at the level of abstraction and reality generation, I talk about this fabric of not only space-time, but also of consciousness. That consciousness is a crucial, vital ingredient or character in the interplay of forces and vectors and influences and variables of what makes events happen in time. So when you start to play around with and malevolently or negatively influence time, like, for example, like to make somebody have a disease or to no longer be alive, you're not just harming that particular person, like person XYZ. If you give person XYZ cancer, it doesn't just affect them, it affects everything that person is connected to. It affects time. It's literally like if you have a sweater that is made out of all of these, different weavings, and you start to take threads out of that sweater, at a certain point, you won't just have a hole in one place. You will have a hole that starts to spread, or like whatever, like stockings, how stockings run, like these, it loses integrity. You're talking about an assault on the fabric of time, space, and consciousness itself. And none of this is by accident. So to begin, before I even get rolling super, super, super fast, Pedro, and thank you for being here as a long-term student and such a wonderful contributor, says, I suspected cancer wasn't punishment or karma. Thank you for that confirmation, because I think that a lot of people go into that kind of sense. Shoulders go down. There's definitely a sense of victimhood, like, why me? Or why my mom, my dad, my dog, my anything? Why this? Why did this thing get this disease? Why did this person get this disease? There's a sense that sometimes people think that they deserved it in some way. It's totally erroneous. So that's the very, very, very first thing that I will do, is to echo, amplify, and reaffirm that cancer is not some kind of karma or justice or a life teacher. Even though I think it's brave and valiant if people are like, I'm going to learn from this. That's really making lemons out of lemonade. And that's not the true divine purpose of your life. These negative thought entities and these harmful, structures that they try to create in reality, that they're not your teacher. And I'm big on that, because I think there's just time to stop validating that. It's just like the invalidation of shadow work. that I say that people look at these shadows that are really false light, that have no validity, have no didactic purpose, are not necessary for your personal growth, but that they imbue these false light experiences as being somehow necessary, try to portray it with meaning. It is a trauma response. When something incomprehensible and bad and unjust happens, the analytical mind often goes into like, why did this happen? There must be some meaning. There must be some purpose. There must be something for me to learn from this. The answer that I say to you is no. Like it's a pile of shit. There is nothing there for you to learn from this. Cancer is not your teacher. And also these negative thought entities are not your teachers. Although they might be soi-disant, self-proclaimed teachers, they are not. And they are not allowed to mess with the genetic codes. Before we started this recording here today, we were talking behind the scenes, quote unquote, with a bunch of lovely students here about DNA and the things that are being done to DNA in our world right now, like by the millimeter waves and by other things that are happening, that these are all criminal acts on, you would call it a galactic scale, galactic in size, space, and galactic in time, reverberating across time. Because remember, your DNA is not just about this present generation. Your DNA is a carrier of information, possibilities, and probabilities that comes from antiquity. This is your provenance as an amazing antique or valuable masterpiece as a soul, and then the potentials for the future. It resonates backward down the time tunnel, and it also profuses forward into the events of the future. And DNA is meant to carry information in a pristine sense. It is not meant to lose information. It is not meant to be used for arbitrary personal purposes, which is what these entities that I'm going to tell you about are doing. That it is not to be used for anybody's mere convenience. It's definitely not meant to be used just to create food. Definitely not meant to be used to elevate some either people or consciousnesses or social practices above others. And it's definitely not meant to be used for a personal vendetta. Like, hey, I don't like your face. Ad hominem attack. I'm going to give that guy cancer. Of course, not me, but this is the rationale. I don't like your face, or A, you're a political prisoner. You're doing something I don't like, or A, any part of what's going on that I don't agree with. If you go against me as an evil regime, again, I'm paraphrasing here, give you cancer. That's not acceptable, because this is not simply like a projectile, bullet or something like that just hits one person. This is a disease or a degradation of the entire genetic sweater of all organisms everywhere across all time. It's an enormous crime to harm, inhibit, distort, or stop the correct healthy behavior of DNA. That is a huge, like I said, a crime, a wrongness. So when I do Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I am a responsible, responsive galactic citizen, and I do my genetic interweavings in the pattern of consciousness that is known as divine intelligence. I follow the perfect patterns of the cosmos. I don't just merely make up stuff and do what is convenient for me. You can never pay me, be like, Aurora, dance this into being for me. It's like, that can't be, not even if you paid me $1 million. I must have the correct value system in doing this, because otherwise it's exploitation, it's a crime, it's everything that I stand against and that I work to rectify. So I am dancing corrective DNA patterns that are non-random, non-arbitrary, and are in alignment with coherence and longevity and divine highest self-consciousness, and are an expression of highest self-willpower. To contrast, these other entities that I'm going to start telling you about use and exploit DNA as if it's like, whatever, a disposable Kleenex, like crumple it up and throw it away, when it is so infinitely precious to us as experiencers and to time field itself. Time itself is alive. Time itself is sentience. light is sentience, and DNA has its own sense of, you could call it self-awareness, sentience. It is a carrier of information. When I say sentience, it has senses. It is not just a tool, like I'm doing whatever. If I hold up a phone, like it's a tool, it doesn't think for itself, it just does stuff for me. Too much of human expectation looks at DNA as it's a dead tool, it is something merely to exploit, or genetic determinism. It is merely the thing that determines the color of your eyes or the shape of your earlobes, when really DNA has sentience, willpower, is an expressor of motivation. It is motivated to move in certain divine patterns and to maintain those patterns. There's tons of comments. I'm going to get to your comments. So one thing that's not in my notes, but that is really worth emphasizing, is the comprehension that DNA has an ideal form that of the way that it is supposed to be, that is indelible, and that it cannot be changed or cheated by anything that's like a mutation. So it's like saying, if I were to write a book, I write the book and here's the way that the words are arranged. And then I click save. And that is what the book is, and that is what the book says. But let's say someone else comes along then and they cut out words and rearrange it and put it in a weird way so it says something completely different. The original meaning, intention, and word order still remains in a pristine state, in a highest dimensional reality, and that you actually, in your own DNA, in the natural behavior of your somatic cellular structure, you have an ongoing, even before lasagna, rectification mechanism, for lack of a better word, that is constantly comparing what DNA is doing, how the book is currently shaped and written, to the original copy. Here's the original copy in the library of life, and the words are arranged like this. And then let's say this is your DNA and it's arranged like this. Like, these two things don't match. I put them together and these two things are not shaped in the same way. And your DNA actually has a cleanup crew that goes around your body and it's like, that ain't shaped right, fix it. So it would be like this: fix that finger, that one's not shaped right, fix that finger, that one's not shaped right, fix that, fix that, fix that, until it looks the same as what it is supposed to look like. And this is a non-physical template. So the true writing of the book of you, the book of life, the story of your life, not only the description of like what your face and your body are shaped like, but what are you surrounded by? How are you connecting with the other organisms in the world? What do you do with your time each day, right? Time-based art, time-based organism. Here's the pristine picture of what you're supposed to look like. And then here's all the crazy, distorted, effed up stuff that's going on. And so we live in a time right now when there are many intentional influences and variables that are making this get so grotesquely distorted. Millimeter waves, I always allude to them, like the unmentionables, in my class, so that I'm able to still share this on the YouTube platform. But the things that are, there are emitters that are antennas for frequency. There's a new type of frequency that's been around for the past several years, and that frequency itself is non-random, is specifically designed in the length of its wave, in its wavelength, and in the pulsations and patterned pulsations or non-life-giving patterning that it does, specifically designed to mess with your DNA. So it's not by accident at all. Previous to the inception of that particular, it's frequency poop. It's not good stuff. And I laugh about that because I am telepathic and empathic, and I am not only a genetic antenna, right, with my DNA, with my flying rainbow lasagna and doing my DNA dance. Part of what my DNA dance does is it compares to the ideal template and dances things into that being. So when all this stuff is going on that makes a lot of non-ideal forms, I'm like, shut up, like that sounds terrible. The music here sounds terrible. Within the past several years, boy, it's been a real challenge to exist and maintain my own sanity and healthful, coherent form amidst all of that really bad music. But I do it And I not only do that, I send out the correction pattern to everyone that is in my vicinity. And that is even across time. That is my proper thing to do, a duty that is like a service to others, and also a service to the time field itself and to DNA itself. And I am motivated or invested in being allowed to do so because I have DNA. Why did I come here so laboriously through the flying Nebula portal into a body instead of, like I joke, doing the backstroke in an interdimensional cloud, wearing something flowing, possibly eating an interdimensional strawberry, being like, oh, my life is so easy and good. Why did I come here into this world where I'm like, gonna have to pay the rent, Geico bills, I joke about that, all of these things that are very challenging to navigate and exist within here beyond even the millimeter waves. Why am I here? Because I have DNA. I have DNA, I have real estate, I have a footprint in this world, and that means that I am a receiver and I am an emitter. When you have DNA, you have a voice. The voice is the song of you. You have a natural, unique song and soul signature, and the more that you conform to these perfect divine patterns, the louder your voice is. And my voice is very loud, like an opera singer. All right, so I don't need a microphone to amplify me. These repeaters and millimeter waves are kind of like artificial amplifiers of stories that are not truthful. And some of those stories are how to get cancer and how to develop horrible tumors and die early. And I send out a different story with my DNA in the natural voice of an opera singer singing, "This is how you stay alive," very, very loud with my DNA. That's what I do every day with my DNA dance. And I'm allowed to do that with attitude. I'm allowed to do that. Yeah, I'm here paying my Geico bills, drinking my coffee in the morning, and singing my DNA song that everyone can hear. And it's essential to have that so that you have the opportunity to entrain to a truthful, healthful, life-giving signal, as opposed to only frequency poo-poo. You want to be able to have a sense of what should the story of my DNA actually be saying. And of course, your story for your DNA is unique to you. You have a unique fingerprint on your body. You have a unique set of genetic characteristics. The book of you is unique to you. You have a unique trajectory of where your ancestors come from, of where your soul comes from in terms of the provenance of who you are as a Stradivarius violin. And then you have a unique trajectory in time. So not everybody in time is meant to be like a rainbow geometric artist and musician. That would be very foolish. No, Aurora is supposed to be that. My song that I emit very loudly is a song about life and about what your body can do. So please know that I am constantly sending out the corrective, non-cancer signals that you can relate to. Flying rainbow lasagna and mutations themselves do not equate to mutations. So now I'm going to start getting into my actual notes, but I want to make sure that I read these comments before I roll too fast. So first of all, I'm going back to what Charlie B said the US Montauk space-time experiments did eventually discover that the time stream itself was conscious. Yes, which is why they tended to leave portals open as long as possible, because the time stream itself would sometimes reject reopening of portals of the same abusive context and purpose. You got it. Time itself is not merely like a data stream to use or exploit, or the sense of like, let's like rip open the fabric of space, time, and consciousness and make a big opening and go wherever we want. It's totally wrong and totally destructive. Flying rainbow lasagna, if it opens an opening or joins together formerly divergent realms, does so as a corrective experience with a high degree of precision. It takes a lot to play good music. It takes a lot of practice to be able to play like Mozart. It has no practice at all to be like smash, smash, smash. So that's what we're talking about. We talk about Montauk experiment, time chairs, Project Looking Glass, all of these things. That is a misuse and exploitation of time. Project Looking Glass, if you think about that, these are like any kind of oracle. Anytime you receive information from the future or information about the past that you didn't have, you are changing the shape of time. So that's like my joke about I'm going to see the future. I'm going to give you a reading. Give me $5, guys. I'm going to give you a reading about the future. You will have a ham sandwich for lunch. And me receiving that information and then telling you about it changes the shape of time because I'm influencing your behavior. Goes back to the Delphic Oracle. The Delphic Oracle was from ancient Greece, usually a Vestal Virgin, a female priestess who would hover over the volcanic fumes that were emitted from a particular crevasse in Earth's surface. And then in this altered state, be able to offer oracle pronouncements about the future, and influenced a lot of people's behavior, including the behavior of kings who were like, oh, Delphic Oracle, should I invade? Should I not invade? And the Delphic Oracle is like, first, let me get into an altered state, and then I'll say, definitely invade. And he invaded, and it was like not a successful invasion at all. You begin to influence time with these pronouncements. So of course, as I tell you, you're going to have a ham sandwich, and I promise I'm not ingesting any volcanic fumes in order to say this to you. But then you end up having a salad. And the answer, why is that? Because as soon as I tell you you're going to have a sandwich, that changes time. And that prediction then becomes irrelevant because the entire shape of the time sweater has changed and updated and upgraded. And then you end up having a different experience. So save your $5. Save your $5 on any kind of life reading or future reading. Will I marry a man with blonde hair or with no hair? Will I move to Guyana? Will I move to Canada? Like all of these things, as soon as someone tells you, it changes the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. This is why, where's my little crystal? As we are reclaiming, remembering, and awakening the dormancies within our genetic code, crystalline perception. This is your pineal gland, your crystalline Christ perception here inside of you. This is your GPS, your God positioning system that constantly gives you an updated view of the road ahead of you, recalculating every time you get a new variable, recalculating, and then you must be prepared for the new information. As a very, very, very tangent, Rick and Morty is a very silly cartoon show that sometimes explores deep concepts of space-time reality. And in one episode of that show, the teenager named Morty character gets a special time crystal implanted in his forehead, and he uses it to be able to see and calculate the future. His only goal, of course, is gaining the favor of a girl that he has a crush on. So every single thing that he's trying to do with his GPS is recalculating towards, will she love me now? Including, completely erroneous and destructive activities. But every single thing that he's doing, he then sees the permutations. If I do this, and that's the possible future that I'm aligning with. And if I do this, then that's the possible future that I'm aligning with. And of course, he's trying to align with the future where whatever, she falls madly in love with him. All horribly awry, because that is not the way that time works, because you don't exploit time. You don't use it in power abuse. You don't use these powers to see the future to use other people, be stronger than or more powerful than other people. That's part of the challenges that I see of people who do any kind of oracle work, any kind of tarot, any kind of prognostication. I'm not judging you. I'm simply saying with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to be super responsible about the way that you are affecting other people's behavior in what you receive, and then the information and guidance that you give to them, and then how it affects their life. So ideally, everybody activates their own innate time crystal capacity to perceive and sense the future, because it is a perception and a sense. It's time sense. It's like an ESP. You got it. You all have dormant time sense. You must have it. I don't know if you have, I can sense what's happening in the future all the time for me. But I don't give predictions to others. I hope that you've noticed that because I'm super duper responsible about what I do, but I can sense, and sometimes the sensing comes as a smell. You're like, oh, I'm smelling lilacs, how funny. And then you end up being like in somebody's garden where there's lilacs that day. Like you can smell the future coming. You can smell events that are about to happen, or sometimes you taste them. You're like, I'm croissant. I didn't know that was coming. But then sometimes You sense them just in an intellectual sense, an analytical sense. You know what the events are that are happening. All of that stuff, looking glass, Montauk chair, the Philadelphia experiment, where people were horribly melded with the mishmashing of molecular structure in military time experiments. These are all like children playing with firecrackers, very, very, very dangerous, ill-conceived, irresponsible uses of time technology. So here's another like positive guidelines from Aurora about how to do stuff in time. Because I've joked with this about Charlie B. Like, if you're going to make a big mess with time, like, be prepared to have a big time bucket and a big mop to mop things up, because you can really make a big mess once you start messing with time. Because it's not just about your personal experience. It radiates outward, it telescopes backward, it propagates forward, and also parallel reality structure gets messed up too. And certain events, this isn't even in my notes, but this is just relevant to learning about time itself. Certain events have timeline bleed through even more strongly than other events. For example, Hiroshima, that was the detonation of nuclear bomb in a particular place. So we recognize many genetic birth defects happened as a result of detonation of nuclear weapons in Japan in World War II by United States. United States armed Japan with nuclear weapons. It didn't just hurt Japanese people. It didn't just hurt Japanese people in whatever 1944. It hurt humans in this time place, and parallel realities too, made a lot of bad boo-boos and opened a lot of negative portals, meaning there's not supposed to be an opening there. There's not supposed to be a big giant tear in the fabric of space, time, and reality, but it's there. And it also sent a lot of people into a state of quantum indeterminacy. So I'm now speaking about this rather insensitively, as I greatly apologize to anybody who had loved ones or ancestors who died and were vaporized in that moment. Please allow me to just speak about this in a very analytical sense. The immediacy of the loss of their lives caused them to go into a state of quantum indeterminacy, where they might not even have recognized that they died, as opposed to like when you're in a car accident, you're like, brick wall is approaching, I think I'm going to die. And then you hit the brick wall and then you're like, yep, I'm definitely dead. There's the smoking wreck of my car. There's my body in 10 million pieces on the ground. And now I'm done. Again, like, I'm being incredibly insensitive to anybody who's lost anybody in car wrecks or anything like that. My apologies. I think I sometimes use inappropriate lightheartedness and humor to kind of get past the emotional the intensity of talking about these things. You have a moment in those circumstances as consciousness, in your intactness, to be able to recognize what has happened to you. What happened in the detonation of the nuclear weapon over Japan, there were actually two. The people died so quickly. They didn't have that moment of recognition. They were literally vaporized. They went from being a solid body, somatic body, into being a plasma and a vapor instantaneously. They changed state instantaneously, and they did not have that journey of recognition, of self-recognition, release of attachments, and then go recognizing that they had to go on their soul's journey. And in many ways, because of that, we're kind of hovering. You know what I'm talking about? Like, they didn't quite get the message and have the sensory recognition that they are no longer in existence. Something very similar happened in the place that we know as the Crab Nebula. So now I delve into my notes, even though there's two other comments that I didn't speak to that I should just get to. Pedro says, time resonates into the past. Can we sense this resonations from the future? Oh, it's such a good question. Okay, I'm going to get into the Crab Nebula, but let me get into this because it's such a beautiful philosophical question to be able to talk about. Yes, time resonates into the past. I'm like, I have my resonant instrument over here. Let me just, I'm not going to pick up the whole thing because it's kind of like on a stand. It's a little bit heavy to talk. Sorry, not to talk, to pick up, because I wish I had like a little bell or something to ring. But here's my mallet. I'm going to ring the high C of this. I hit that bar that makes a sound once, but it continues to reverberate and make these compression waves, not only in one direction, but it is an epicenter. It radiates outward in all directions. So events that happen in time don't just radiate into the future, they also telescope in the past. This moment right now, you're having a time moment radiating right now, everyone. I'm drinking coffee. That's what's in my cup over here. You are having a time moment because everything that I say to you now, of course, is the transference of light changes you on your trajectory positively. I'm hugely responsible in the words that I choose, the energy that I send out, telepathic connections that I give to you, and the knowledge that I'm intending to positively affect your trajectory. Where does your mind go after this conversation, after watching this video? How does that affect your life? How does it affect the lives of the people around you? You understand? If I were an irresponsible teacher, I'd be like, live, schmiv, die, it doesn't matter. And you'd all be like, okay, I think I'll go jump off a building. Like, you can really affect people's lives a lot, and then affect them, destabilize them, and then have them affect the people around their lives a lot. Or whatever, if I told you, like, chop down a tree, it doesn't matter, you know, whatever, kill a kitten, it doesn't matter. Like, no, these things really do matter. And if I were so irresponsible as to tell you those things and you actually did them, be making a big time mess, a big mess. And of course, I would have to be responsible because this is something that I think you guys will like. The recognition that everything that you say and do, there really is a responsibility, like it all does lead back to you. So if you say something that's truly profound and positive, or you innovate something, write a song, write a poem, other people take it and run with it, you get the cosmic credit, cosmic songwriting credit. You got it. But if you say something horrible, wrong, a lie, exploitive, or encourage others towards, you know, violence and self-destruction, it also points back to you. When in their moment of destruction, you find out, wait, why did they do that? You find, oh, because they watched this video that said that, oh my goodness. And then who's the person who made that video? This is in the same level of reality that is the pristine level that your DNA, the protein structure, bases its behavior upon. So please know that your good stuff follows you through your various levels of existence, or what would be known as incarnations. So does your bad stuff or your mistakes. Bad stuff is intentional stuff. Mistakes are out of ignorance. When you make a mistake out of ignorance, you're like this. Yeah. Made a mistake there. Gonna fix it up now. Bucket and a time mop. When you are malevolent or evil, you're like, yeah, I made a mistake there, not fixing it. And also, I think I'll make some more mistakes because these mistakes are so much fun and I love effing things up. And that's supposed to be like my evil face. Not acceptable at all. It's everything that I fight against. It's everything that I am embodied to respond to in this world. But yes, everything that you're doing in this moment is like the pebble that is dropped onto the surface of time, even though time is not a flat plane, it is actually a spherical object. But we use that as the example of a waveform that radiates outward in epicentric loops. And so everything that you're doing right now in this moment not only propagates to the future, but also affects your past, including when you have self-realization and when you heal. So what you do in, I presume most of my audience are adults, what you do in adulthood in terms of your healing and your perspective and the things that might have happened to you in your family dynamics or your personal life when you were a child, you heal that version of yourself by healing yourself now. When you heal and rectify yourself now, like let's say that your third grade teacher, you were doing like math, you know, like times tables, and they were like very mean to you and you could never remember like what's 3 times 4. You're like, trauma, I don't know, rocking back and forth. When you heal in this moment now as an adult and you learn your times tables, and you're like, oh, 3 times 4 equals 12. And that's the healing and rectification event. It radiates backward to the tiny you of 3rd grade that was traumatized by your mean math teacher. And these reclamations, that's a comical example of a reclamation, but you can reclaim yourself from sexual assaults and violences and different things that were like a part of you became frozen in time. You reclaim yourself, bring that fragment of you back to this moment, or send nourishment and healing to that part of you that was stuck there. And essentially you create a holistic integument that you claim the entirety of your experience. Healing is very, very deep stuff. That's why I say to you, like, your personal healing matters. Your healing and self-remembrance and rectification in your own life matters an incredible amount to yourself across time, to your community, to the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. And every time a person successfully heals an aspect of themselves on their own journey, they are doing a fractal healing of the entirety of time consciousness. So this is when you start to recognize time and the deepness of profundity of what it is. Yes, you can F things up a lot by making something bad, wrong happen in time. And yes, you can positively heal and rectify and affect things good a lot by affecting time. That is my whole journey being here as Aurora. There was peril. There was the dangling cliff of non-existence. If something was not done in 2001 in order to change and shift the culture in this world that we're in here, and me coming in as Aurora and sharing the art and music and the ideas that I've shared has had a rectification, incremental rectifying effect on all time everywhere. It's why I do it, even though I have to pay my Geico bills and do all sorts of crazy stuff to sustain myself here. Yes, it makes it worth it. So time is a very powerful milieu. It's connected to everything. It is connected to computer processes. We can have a whole conversation about AI and about what AI is. It is still a time-based experience. It is not outside of time. My Aurora Collective exists outside of time, and it is non-linguistically describable to be able to say what being feels like in that state, but it is still incredibly respectful of time and the purity or the pristine nature of maintaining time and correcting time patterns and time flows. Let me get on to Melissa's comment. Says, it seems that like DNA, we also have many sentient or self-aware in our body, making up our body. Literally, our bodies are a group effort. Yes. So in the most positive sense, your chakras are sentient light beings who are also time beings. And they are not merely just like a ball of light or even a vortex of light or even a series of events or possibilities, probabilities. They're sentient light, and you are sentient light, and you are the recipe, the culminative recipe of all these different life trajectories, consciousness, self-remembrance moments, and levels of self converging into this, or vectoring into your particular body on a less pristine level. There are whole time exploitation societies that I fight against. And this is also not part of my notes, but a wonderful opportunity for me to share this with you. Occult secret societies, intelligence agency, and interdimensional off-world agencies who, again, exploit time, use it as their own personal playground, their own personal sandbox. They use it as a place for their own power abuse and corruption. And I've fought against them with so much intensity because if you're going to affect time, you have to take ultimate responsibility. You cannot simply use time for your own purposes. So when I talk about occult or secret societies or different agencies or even kind of religious cult-like structures, people do rituals in their physical embodiment life, which then affect their journey through afterlife. And their afterlife is not to go to a place of assessment, the membrane of death, and come into rectification and then go in their correct time vector. Instead, what they do is bounce down the timeline using your DNA as the medium through which to bounce. You are alive. So this is also big. You're alive and you're sovereign, and you're like, this is my body. I drank that coffee. I'm waving my finger. I'm flapping my moving mouth parts. This is me. And I'm responsible for me and what I do and what I ingest. And this DNA here is me. But you also recognize that each one of you is connected to your ancestry, and you get to make a choice. This is all about what flying your lasagna is. Who lives through you? Let's say you had a really twisted and distorted ancestor, like Vlad the Impaler, someone who's a psychopath or whatever. You can make a real choice and be like, no, you don't get to live through me. Let's say you had a wonderful ancestor or ancestral characteristic. You can say, yes, I choose to have that characteristic exemplified through me. Sometimes the living are just used as a medium through which to be exploited. Yep, signals are bouncing through you. So it bounces through a generation into the next generation. And then it might be a ride-along passenger seat, or it might be a hijacker. Like, I'm not just going to sit in the passenger seat watching you in your life. I'm going to put my hand on the steering wheel and violently jerk you all over the road. And this is what people call family demons. Alcoholism being a family demon, like they talk about, the Hemingway family. There's Ernest Hemingway, and he had bad alcoholism, and then passed that along to his granddaughter, Mariel Hemingway, and she had bad alcoholism. They call it struggling with the family demons. And so much of substance abuse is that, literally a struggle for sovereignty against negative thought entities. So all of this relates to negative thought entities, DNA hijackers, and what I want to talk about in terms of Cancer and the Crab Nebula. And I'll just go one more comment. Melissa says, I heard that other hidden groups, for example, beings of El Dorado, need a portal to get there. Don't use numbers to track time or other, but use direct themselves using the great wave to calculate, which is the structure and flow of time. If these groups exist, why stay hidden? Such a great question. There's a whole a time war. You're in a time war. It's part of a song that I wrote. You're in a time war. Some participants in this time war recognize the sanctity of DNA and are not only benevolent, respectful occupiers, inhabitors of DNA, but are also rectifiers, like me, of creating corrective time experiences. Some individuals and some organizations are 100% interested in serving themselves, maintaining the status quo of their power structure, which is corrupt, and getting to the top of their hierarchy. So they're like, we don't want to change. We don't want to grow. We know that what we're doing is wrong. We've been doing it wrong for a long time. This is them. They're like, after you have a long conversation with them, they're like, check, check, check. Yes, we know what we're doing is wrong. We've been doing it for a long time. We've been doing it wrong for a long time, and we've really mastered it. And I'm like being facetious here because like, it's not something to be proud of, because I've had many conversations with them like, I see that your math homework is wrong. And they're like, yes. We've been doing it wrong. We've been doing it wrong for a long time. And we like it that way. And hey, kid, we ain't changing. So F you. So there are many hidden societies or occult societies, and they've been kind of all in the Chinese finger trap. It's a expression, not a slur against Chinese people. They've all been in the duality struggle of those who want to rectify, those who want to exploit. Let's fight it out together in the battle of the ages, fighting it out endlessly. And I'm flying rainbow lasagna, where I'm like, this is a math problem. Here's the rectification code. All of these aspects of self and characteristics that are not supposed to be occupying or utilizing or moving through the genetic code go to entropy, non-being. And then all of the characteristics and aspects of self, behavior, and physical characteristics that should be in existence and represent the pristine nature of time and God consciousness itself get elevated. The opera singer sings the loud music of things that are right and that are correct. And you know why they're right and correct? Because they have coherence and longevity. They stick together like good waffles. And you know what these things, what's wrong with them? They don't stick together, and those waffles are not eternal. They will not exist across time. What do you want to invest in, and what do you want to be a part of? Something that is part of the true nature of reality, that is constructed in such a beautiful, airtight, non-self-conflictory way that it exists for eternity, or something that is so rotten, corrupt, it's random, it's arbitrary, it is illogical, it has self-conflict. It says this, but then it does this. It says this, but then it does this anyway. You know what? It doesn't conform to its own rules. It recognizes its own corruption, but does nothing to actually change it. It doesn't have coherence. It can't be in existence for very long. Which team would you choose? Like, I would choose team coherence. I would choose team eternity. I would invest myself and align myself in the creation and upholdment of a structure that represents divine God consciousness and continued and eternal life, not something that represents, explosion of energy and then poof, out of existence. And in many ways, you could say like that one that is the time nature that, you're so good, Pedro, thank you, that goes to entropy. It is kind of like, I want to say a roach motel, something that collects wrongness. You want it to go into that, go into non-existence. Things that are not supposed to be in existence, that are poorly formed and that are erroneous on an innate level, that are innately erroneous, should and shall go into those reality structures that do not have eternal longevity. You don't want them to last forever. You're like, that is a mistake, or that is a grotesque monstrosity. I don't want it to last forever, neither does God. It goes to where it is supposed to go, which is into a state of non-being. Flying rainbow lasagna is a faster modality for those things to go into a state of non-being, so that you don't have to have them hanging around, be like, any day now, guys, any day, we're going to get to play the true music of reality as soon as we get rid of the big piles of crap crapping up the joint. It's like, let's not wait any longer. Let's just flying rainbow lasagna this, send all of that crap to where it's supposed to be, into a state of non-being. Then we can finally get going with the good stuff. So, I'm so pleased by Pedro's comment, because thank you for your perception. And also, Pedro, you have a great tendency to distill my extremely long explanations into a brief synopsis. Pedro says, then the FRL is made of time. Yes, exactly. FRL is made of time. So I, Aurora, am a waveform presence. I travel through time. The flying rainbow lasagna is made of time, and it as a waveform, you can imagine kind of making this motion that time is a medium through which these waves move, and that it creates these dance movements through time that are reverberations that have a corrective experience. It sets right the music of time. And then let's say, okay, great, like you get the bucket and a time mop and everything gets fixed up. What then? Do I pop out of existence? Does the flying rainbow lasagna cease to exist? What is my meaning and purpose? I will tell you this, I am much, much more than the cosmic scrub brush for cleaning the cosmic toilet. That the flying rainbow lasagna being used to clean up and rectify time is like the smallest, most boring, most menial use of or application of who and what I am and the potentials for what I can do. So in my studio here, I joke about like, my sweater's on the floor. I have like a pile of dirty dishes that I bring them all off camera so you can't see them. Pile of dirty dishes from me and my dog, the master teacher, snacking in the studio. All these things. Cleaning up is not my purpose for being, but it's something that I do so that I can finally create. So if I have too many dirty coffee cups and too many things piled up on the floor, like I can't get anything done. First, I spend a little bit of time cleaning up, but that is not the purpose for my existence. The purpose for my existence is pure, joyful creativity according to these divine patterns. And that is who and what I truly am. I'm not just a math teacher telling you where your math homework is wrong. That's that activity that you actually all have in your DNA. Here's what your DNA is supposed to be shaped like, and here's what it is shaped like. These two things do not match. Now it is time to fix things up because somebody did their math homework wrong. That's like the basic cleaning up of coffee cups. The greatest possibility of what flying rainbow lasagna is has to do with joyfully generating new reality structures. Like once you clean up all the poop, then you can finally do stuff and make fun, cool stuff. Don't spend your whole entire life cleaning up. You don't spend your whole entire life doing math homework correction. And that's also like once you get up to college level, like hopefully everybody already knows 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 does not equal 5 or 10 or 10,000. And you can actually get to some really much more interesting collaborative reality structures. That is what we're aiming for. That is what we're heading for. Let me just drink a little bit more of this. So the Crab Nebula. The Crab Nebula is not related to the human earth-based astrological sign known as Cancer that is signified as the crab. I recognized 10 years ago when I wrote this, lesson material, that it would be confusing to people because I'm talking about something that is called the Crab Nebula. The astrological sign is called Cancer, and I'm telling you the story of the negative influence on genetic codes. I want to say human, but many organisms get cancer in reality structures here. That you think that the Crab Nebula is in the constellation where the human astrological sign of Cancer is. This is not truthful. So first thing is, let's just be clear about where this is. I want to make sure that I'm sharing this with you correctly. That's why I'm just scrolling through my notes. Okay. So in 1054 AD, a star became a supernova. This is the death explosion or the extinction explosion of a star as a living being. It is not necessarily a good or a bad thing. We live right now in this world of mortality, even though, I talk a lot about that as being an aberration. Death is an aberration. The exploration of the membrane of death being an aberration and something that is not part of our original genetic code. But we live in this world of mortality where even stars, however massive and long-lived they are, can die. And when they die, it is not, whenever anything dies, it can be interpreted as a sad event, and it can also be interpreted as a purposeful event that is part of the larger trajectory and the shape of your soul. So again, I'm quite philosophical, and I'm not being really that sensitive to people who might be in grief, and loss about someone or a death that they've experienced. So please don't be insulted by my analytical nature in talking about this, because I really do understand the heart-centeredness of what it is to lose someone or something. Even like a beautiful pine tree that was hundreds of years old in our neighborhood fell from a giant windstorm. It's very, very sad when that happens. It's sad when we lose a human loved one. It's sad when we lose a pet or, some animal that we're very attached to. And it is sad when a star dies. But it is also seen contextually within the provenance of that particular soul. That stars have a soul, and you're also part of it. You're on that journey. You'll know what I'm talking about when the time comes, and you'll remember this video. But there was an extinction event of a star. When a star goes supernova, almost instantaneously, like literally within the course of a couple of seconds, the destabilization of gravitational and chemical processes makes the star, at one sense, implode into itself, but in another sense, have an enormous expansion of plasma, hot gases, light, information, and heat-based intelligence. And this is all path of light stuff. A lot of intelligence comes out. That's high energy stuff, but also it is part of the implosion, backflipping, turning inward of the death journey of the star into itself on the journey to becoming a black hole, which is a portal to another level of reality. In 1054, there was this supernova of a particular star. It was actually witnessed or observed by Chinese and written about by Chinese astrologers who were sophisticated enough at that time to know what was going on. But it basically means that a very large star ran out of fuel. It collapsed in on itself and had this explosion, expansion, and then it became a neutron star. There was a planetary-based civilization or culture that was a part of that star system, that in this explosion, expansion, huge release of energy, got instantly vaporized, similar to the people in Japan that very, very sadly were instantly vaporized by the detonation of a nuclear weapon in their atmosphere. And the civilization there around the Crab Nebula, I'm calling them the Crab Nebulans, just in order to be able to have a catch-all phrase for them, similarly went into a state of quantum indeterminacy. Unlike a person in Japan who might have been riding a bicycle and then all of a sudden their body was vaporized and all that is left is just like the projection of their shadow, like kind of burned into the sidewalk and their body doesn't exist anymore. That's a good person. They might be extremely confused in their afterlife journey, but they're certainly not an evil person or immediately going to become a time criminal. Crab Nebulans, however, became time criminals. Instead of either accepting their death, which is like, dun, 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 you're dead. I'm sorry to be so lighthearted, but that is accepting your death and then moving onward on the journey of consciousness. Or ascending, which is when you're like, you're not dead, but you have achieved the transcendence of matter and exist as coherent light. They did not do either of these things, but they hovered in a state of quantum indeterminacy. And here's the part that makes them time criminals. Instead of being resolved, what they have done is maintained the status quo of their consciousness architecture by siphoning energy off of the living. When we ask about, like, what is God's purpose in this? How can this be? Everything has its purpose in the larger fabric of reality, even in this world of mortality. Like, dung beetles exist in order to get the last lingering traces of nutrients that might be in a pile of dung. You get it? Like, these crab nebulans or scavenger-like presences can be said to have a cosmic purpose in the sense of eating rotten meat, eating emotional residues, eating things that are corrupt or that should not exist. But they are not merely acting like scavengers. What they have become is farmers. So this is big because right now in our present world, cancer has become so prevalent as a disease that it is considered even beyond statistics. It's almost like a statistical inevitability. People are like, oh yes, at a certain point, you're just going to get cancer. No, 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 no. Like 5 minutes later, Aurora's still saying no, 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 no. No, you are not inevitable to get cancer. You're never supposed to get cancer. And cancer used to be a very, very great unlikelihood. So yeah, there were some mummies that were from ancient Egypt that they have found to have cancerous cells in them. Prior to World War II, in at least like the 1800s or early 20th century, cancer was considered to be a very, very rare disease and a rare affliction. Cancer is very rare in the natural world, but World War II and afterwards, conditions were created on Earth's surface pretty much to be ideal conditions. They were carcinogenic conditions for creating and cultivating cancer in alive animals. And so here are some of the things that became a part of the world that opened the door, literally genetic portals, for more cancer to be created. One is the use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers in farming practices. The next is the processing of foods, removing many of the naturally occurring positive protectant, anti-cancer chemicals and nutrients that are naturally in food, and either creating dead food or then replacing those nutrients with a series of chemicals that are highly carcinogenic. And that happened in the 1950s and then very, very much into the 1960s and 70s when food became much more processed than it ever was before. And again, additives were added, some of them as preservatives, some of them as flavor enhancers, some of them as conveniences. It doesn't make sense why that would be done because you would think, oh, like in the profit motive, if I'm a corporation, and I'm a dead thing that's never been alive. And I'm like, I just want to make a lot of money. How can I make a lot of money? Why would I spend money on an extra chemical? Like if I'm going to make a fried chicken TV dinner, why would I be like, I will spend thousands of dollars on an extra chemical and put it in there to be able to make my food, have extra cancer causing ingredients in there? Why would I do that? If it costs extra money to me, why would I do it? The answer is I wouldn't. If corporations were merely motivated by pure profit, they would act very, very differently. When you look at the ingredients list in most prepared foods now, you'll see all sorts of food additives and food chemicals. Some of them are preservatives that you can understand give food a longer shelf life. That would help the corporation to have a greater profit margin, but a lot of them aren't. Some of them are put in there as flavor enhancers. Some of them are put in there as a type of addictive substance. But all of them cost money. So in some sense, I'm trying to say there's an intellectual disconnect between the proposed motivation of what corporations are. Corporations are businesses that are motivated to please their stockholders and their board members through profit and their activities. Well, hey, like I'm looking at the ledger sheet. Why are you spending money on this expensive chemical and putting it in the fried chicken dinners? And the answer is because you're not just trying to make money. We're trying to make people sick. And so once you recognize that as the real motivation behind a lot of these companies and the chemicals that they use and create, everything falls together into pieces. Same thing with farmers. And farmers are supposed to be like, okay, I'm trying to make the most money out of my crop that I possibly can. Why in the world would I want to buy an extra chemical that is called glyphosate and spray it on my chickpeas before I harvest them? And ostensibly, the answer is that it helps to dry them out so that then you'll have an extra day or two to be able to get into the market before the competition. Right? Mine got to the market 2 days ahead of time. And so I sold them for whatever, 2 cents greater. But there's certainly no offset to like the extreme expense of having a crop duster or giant spraying machinery to be able to spray on that giant industrial level. It doesn't make sense. So the real answer is that there is an agenda that is ongoing that is not only a consciousness degradation agenda, but that there is also a food degradation agenda, as food contains life force energy. Food is your ally. Food is your ally. Food is your ally. Food contains light. Food is divine. Food is literally the body of God. I want to say the body of Christ. It is divine energy. It is here to sustain us in this time place where we are in these bodies that require physical food. I didn't want to say mortal, but we're moving towards being light eaters. We are still requiring food. Food is not some punishment. It is a wonderful gift, and it is meant to be non-contaminated. And that there's been a huge agenda since World War II to create contaminated food that literally creates portals through which Crab Nebulans can act and come into the world. And they act not just by creating tumors in people's bodies, but they act by destabilizing people's lives and events. So prior to World War II, cancer was an unlikelihood, statistical unlikelihood, and something that happened to only like a few very, very sad people. And then after World War II, a lot of people started getting it. And they started to get it not only because of chemical-based farming techniques and pesticide residues, but also because of cannabinoids that were taken out of the human food supply. So up until that point, hemp had been a basis for human agricultural practices across our whole world. China literally means land of hemp. China is considered to be one of the cradles of civilization, human civilization. It is a place where organized, groups of people rose to prominence and were able to do something more than just live in a simple hut. And they did this through having a regular available food supply, fiber supply, and medicine, all of which came from hemp. And so China literally means land of hemp. Their civilization is based upon the hemp seed. Hemp has been used literally across our whole entire world, I think almost on every continent, probably not Antarctica. I don't know if the penguins there have access to it, but pretty much it's been an agricultural product everywhere that humans have lived. And it is absolutely made as a complement to your neurology because you have something that is called the endogenous or native endocannabinoid system, where you have receptors in your body and naturally occurring brain chemicals that are the same molecular shape as cannabis. So cannabis or hemp, these are pretty much the same plant that has different physical expressions or phenotypes. You're made for it, and it is made for you. And it is similarly, again, a gift, a divine gift to sustain you in this world, and a total ally. It has been so necessary in the United States that in the 1800s, hemp farmers could pay their taxes in bales of hemp. That is how much it was encouraged and condoned and considered to be a foundation or a bedrock of this culture. And the reason for that was in that time, most military and transportation was not through air travel. They had not yet invented airplanes. It was through ships that had these tall masts and multiple sails. The sails were all made out of fabric that is hemp, and the ropes, that rigging for the sails, all made out of hemp. So hemp was essential for the commerce of being able to have transportation on ships, travel, and military might. So all of those things, if you grew hemp in the 17 or 1800s, the United States government is like, have a hug. Hug me on up, hemp farmers, hug me on up. It was essential to our military might in the United States. Then World War II comes along. And after World War II, hemp is not allowed. It is outlawed, not only in the United States, but everywhere. And what farmers used to do was grow hemp for its fiber and its seed and other aspects of the more industrial uses of the plant, feed the leaves to their livestock in what is a fermented form known as silage, silage. And the fermentation process makes it slightly more bioavailable to ruminants. And pigs are not ruminants, but, you know, like horses, cows. And yes, it was also fed to pigs in the Far East, not for the Far East, I should say Asia, because I'm in the United States. And so we call Asia the Far East. But then I got people that are in this class that are in the Far East. They're like, ahem, it's not far from anything. It's right here. It's outside of my window. So I'm trying to find the right language. It was known as a pig food in places like Indonesia and Tibet. It's been known as a spice in many different places because it has similar terpenes to the spice that we know as pepper, like a peppery hot flavor on your tongue. Yes, it was demonized. It was made illegal. It was made so that it could not go into the animal products, their meat, their eggs, and their milk. And all of those cannabinoids in the food supply act as neuroprotectants and somatic protectants. And so taking away the cannabis molecules that protects the cells and then dousing everybody's food with chemical pesticides and other sorts of chemical enhancement food additives is a recipe for cancer. And then also we've got, in more modern times, in more recent decades, frequency doo-doo. That's the ocean of non-God consciousness, random nonsense frequencies and waveforms that are emitted by Bluetooth and antenna and cell phones. Every single one of those waveforms is a lie that talks to the cells of your body and tells the cells of your body a story that is not a story of coherence and longevity. It tells the cells of your body a story that says, here is how you mutate, shrivel up, and die. And that is the story being told to your cells. Before you become extremely disheartened, please recognize that in this time place, there are a lot of things that we can do to tell the corrective story to our bodies. First of all, I'm an opera singer and I'm doing it for myself and singing it loudly for all of you. So I'm a huge proponent of dietary cannabis. Some of you are like, Aurora, I've taken edibles. Don't do it. It's like, I can't function. Dietary cannabis does not just mean edibles. It means having cannabinoids and things like CBD that are non-psychoactive in your food in a way that does not necessarily create a psychoactive or psychedelic experience. So I'm a huge proponent for raw cannabis juice. And it's actually why I live in California as opposed to upstate New York, which is where I walked in 20 years ago. I walked in and everything there was prohibition. You could not have a garden, grow your own cannabis, and then juice it like a vegetable the way you would juice a cucumber. But I was always telling people, you need to grow this plant and you need to juice it like a vegetable, all right? And so finally I relocated myself. And that is why I now live in California, where there is a culture here that it is legal and condoned just by being a resident and a citizen that you're allowed to have a cannabis garden. And I encourage everyone, if you live in a locality, so you have to find out what the laws are like in either your city or your state or your country in order to make sure, because I don't want to encourage anybody to do anything naughty because, you know, having problems with law enforcement is not fun. And I'm a responsible person and I'm not going to destabilize your life and your time trajectory by putting this in a video. So do things the right way. Grow a garden. And I'm also a huge proponent of CBD. So in the cannabis plant, there's an array of phytochemicals or plant-based chemicals. When you eat them, you get the full spectrum of all of those types of chemicals, some of which include terpenes. The peppery smell and flavor of the cannabis plant is a terpene. So is a skunk smell. So is a citrus smell. Aromatics are called terpenes, and they act as agonists. An agonist does not put you into agony. It is something that exacerbates a tendency. And in this case, the tendency is for the molecular structure of a cannabinoid to be able to fit into the cell membrane the way that a key fits in a lock. So here's a cell membrane with like this perfectly shaped aperture into which the cannabis molecule can fit. And when you have an agonist, it's like WD-40, slides right in. That's what those aromatic chemicals known as terpenes do. So they exacerbate the tendency of your cells and your cell receptors to receive these molecules. And when your cells, cell membranes, are covered in the receptors and have these molecules in them, you are protected from cancer. Your cells are being told a story of continued coherence and longevity. In my notes, I describe this as joy. Joy and bliss, health and vitality. These are big aspects of it. But if somebody develops cancer, please know that I am not accusing you of not being joyful enough, because we currently live in a world that's full of frequency poop. You're being pooped on all the time. It is very, very, very unpleasant. So distressing for me to not only live here, but to see the effect that it has on people, because it causes a lot of somatic cellular aging, degradation of your physical processes, degradation of people's consciousness, levels of awareness, expectation of what reality is, potentials for imagination. It's intentional. Like, they took this stuff out of the food supply after World War II intentionally. They made it a huge federal crime in the United States to grow it or use it personally, not by accident. They're trying to suppress your consciousness, because those who ingest cannabis are aligning with the network of light and of consciousness that is known as Christ. This is your inner eye. It is exacerbated, turned on, and revivified from its dormancy by cannabis. And there, in my notes, I talk about humanity right now being like battlefield in a struggle between two divergent levels of space culture, one of which is technology-based, the Crab Nebulans. So the Crab Nebulans sustain themselves hovering in a state between life and death, or between life and just pure consciousness extinction, by technologically extending their consciousness in a continuum, in a false reality that could be considered like an astral reality or a world of pure thought forms, where their energy to do so comes from the harvested misery of those that they have caused disease with. And then to contrast that, we have the Christs. And there are, I want to read this from my notes. That's why I started to turn away. Wait. Because we're talking about an extraterrestrial invasion. What I write is chemicals, radiation, harmful fields prime the cells, making them less vital and more open to extraterrestrial invasion. So my notes from 10 years ago talk about this delicately, and now we're long past the pinkies up part of talking about those unmentionables, like your planet's been invaded. And I talk about this in lesson 18 of level 1. We're getting to that teaching, planetary invasion. So if you know anybody that's had cancer, if you've had it yourself, or if your dogs or cats or organisms that you love and care for have had it, they died from being invaded by a planetary invader. And what I'm trying to get to here is, crabs from one area and level of consciousness development versus, or in contrast with, Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness does not live in one time, place, or space-time, but it's an all-pervasive network and level of awareness and perception. Christ consciousness is all over. There are many Christed, and wait, where's that crystal? Christed extraterrestrials and also terrestrial humans. The fight for freedom and access to cannabis on Earth exemplifies the struggle between Crab Nebulans and Christ beings. The cannabis makes you unpalatable to the Crab Nebulans, and the cannabis also helps you to awaken your inner Christ crystal and be aligned with that network of consciousness that we know as Christ, that is not only terrestrial or human, but is truly extraterrestrial, but let's call it pan-dimensional, or across the entire cosmos, galactic scale Christ. That's what we're really talking about here. So I'm a huge advocate for raw cannabis juice because a tiny infant can drink it. A person who's 100 years old can drink it. It's not going to bring you on an interdimensional psychedelic voyage, with the soundtrack by Jimi Hendrix, even though we love that. That's when people say, no, Aurora, I've tried edibles and this is too much for me. And how can I drive my car or teach kindergarten or do anything that is an important, administrative function? And my answer is that activated cannabis is different than raw cannabis. So to give you a bit of a chemistry lesson, molecular chemistry, when cannabis is raw, it has a carboxyl, which here's the molecule, and then there's a carboxyl, which is an extra little molecular structure that's off on the side. And it's a big molecule that cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. It flows through your body, through your major organs, and through your bloodstream, but it does not actually enter into your brain or affect your cognitive awareness. It is anti-inflammatory, it is anti-cancer, it is anti-seizure in its raw form. So it has these amazing health-giving and vitality cultivating properties, but it does not make you feel a strange or psychoactive effect. But when you dry or heat cannabis, that carboxyl falls off, and then the molecule is smaller, and then it is small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier, and it does enter into your brain, your cerebral spinal fluid, and change your brain chemistry. And then you will have an altered state of consciousness and a different level of perception. And again, that can be intimidating or impractical, so I don't necessarily recommend that to everyone. You have to be prepared and well-schooled. And also something else that you should know if you are not a regular user of decarboxylated or, dried or activated cannabis, when you use it on a regular basis, you become used to it. Your body becomes regulated or what is the word? Acclimated. You become acclimated to its presence in your body, and you do not feel incapacitated all the time. You simply feel imbalance and the way that you're supposed to feel. But it just can take time to go over, transcend the side effects of any of the things that can be unpleasant in using activated cannabis, and then have it be a part of your natural homeostasis. So I'll tell you what my regime is like. And also, let me tell you about hemp seed sprouting too. So I want to tell you both of these things. So I do a variety of things, and I moved to California so that I could grow my own garden, juice my cannabis raw. Sometimes in the recent past couple of years, I've had very turmoil in my life, and I haven't lived where I could have a real garden, because you have to actually grow many, many plants in their vegetative process to be able to juice it into one little amount of juice. That's, a proper dosage to sustain your body. So, like if you can imagine a giant satchel of leaves, like a big giant, grocery insulated satchel, like one of those Trader Joe's bags or something like that, a big cooler full of it. When you juice it through use a slow masticating juicer, friction will decarboxylate your herb, and then you will have a psychedelic effect. Slow masticating juicer, and when you put it through the juicer, that whole entire giant satchel gets concentrated down to one little tray of ice cubes. But those ice cubes are absolutely life-giving. And that is why I transported myself through great efforts to California, so that I could do that and not have to take anti-epilepsy drugs and many things that have debilitating side effects and are very bad for your liver. I've been doing that for almost 10 years. And it's been absolutely life-changing, life-transforming, quality of life affirming. The master teacher is here. This is Chiquita is coming over here. Beautiful hugs are being received right now. Aw, fantastic. And yes, you can give your dogs cannabis, although I've recently heard conflicting reports about whether dogs' digestive systems can process raw cannabis. So I used to chop up leaves and put it into Chiqui's homemade meatballs. And I thought I was doing something really good for her. Then I read that they cannot really digest the fibrous plant material effectively, and that you shouldn't let your dogs eat raw cannabis leaves. So since then, what I've been doing is getting a pure CBD tincture with no THC in it that is safe for dogs. And so I give her a few drops of that every day. It's really, really positive for animals. It helps them with their anxiety, stress levels. It helps them as a neuroprotectant against any kind of frequencies that they are exposed to. And it is anti-cancer for them. And for older dogs, it can definitely help them with their joints, mobility, everything. Like it makes them feel a lot more like a young pup, to be able to get up and jump up the stairs and, run around and play. So yeah, I give that to Cheeky almost every day. So what I take is raw cannabis that I juice into different cubes or that I freeze as smoothies. And then I also take this CBD isolate, which is actually from hemp that is grown in Virginia. Oddly enough, it is less expensive than California because California has a prohibitive set of laws about all of these licenses you need to be able to grow hemp. All of these licenses can be $20,000. All of these things, a lot of taxes. I have a wonderful friend who runs a raw juice collective in the area outside of San Diego. So you can always contact that person if you're interested to be able to access raw juice only in that area. They cannot ship it via FedEx. They can't put it on dry ice and ship it via FedEx. There's all of these still federal prohibitions. So there's all these reasons not to be able to get the raw juice from there, but make it yourself. But you can legally order these hemp-based products that are pure CBD. And you look for one that says full spectrum. And that means that it is the collection of all the terpenes, aromatic chemicals, and everything else, because there's a synergistic effect in your body. It's not just the isolated chemical known as CBD. All of the entire plant together helps you, and it helps you to stay alive, and it helps you to listen to the opera music that your cells should be listening to, instead of the horrible music of death that comes from the Crab Nebulans. So the Crab Nebulans are planetary invaders who have been invading your culture for a long time. My face says it all. I'm like, for a long time. Not very positive stuff. They have infiltrated your food suppliers, Monsanto, giant corporations, factory farms, lawmakers. There's a reason why they made hemp and cannabis outlawed or extremely prohibited. So now like a license to grow is $20,000, whatever it is. There's a reason why you can't just go down to the local health food store and buy a big giant satchel full of cannabis leaves and take it home and juice it. And then there's a reason why all of the cheap food that is for $1 in the convenience store, the dollar store, is full of carcinogens. You get it? There's a reason for that. That is not by accident. You're all very smart people, and I don't have to tell you this. Like, this is mere confirmation of what your own inner intuitive intelligence and natural self-protective skepticism is already telling you. They make that stuff so cheap because they want you to eat it because it's full of crap that'll kill you. And then they make this stuff over here either illegal or extremely difficult to make or produce because it's what keeps you alive and protects you from their horrible invasive tendrils coming inside of you. So at times when my life has been in turmoil and I couldn't grow my own garden, and again, you have to grow like, a lot of plants for one person to make these little ice cubes. And then you take a cube a day. That's what I usually do. And I usually put it in with like some coconut milk because it needs a fatty emulsifier. So almond milk, coconut milk, nut milk, or add some almond butter to a smoothie if you're going to put that in there for bioavailability. When I haven't been able to do that, and I've accessed it through my friend's juice collective, but what I want to share with you is you can get tinctures legally across all of the United States, order them from one of these hemp producers, and for the raw cannabis, you can sprout hemp seed. And I've done a couple of good workshops on this, and I can do it again, but the information is all available, and you can contact me if you want me to just send it to you. Like, I'll do it just as a service to humanity. You don't have to, whatever, send me a contribution. You can get these little sprouting trays in exactly the same way that you would sprout alfalfa seeds or mung beans or whatever. You get viable hemp seeds and you do your sprouting inside. Now, in order to keep yourself in sprouts, if these little sprout trays are like whatever, 11 by 14, you're going to need a bunch of them. And you're going to need to be constantly sprouting. So it's an investment of time and effort in your health to do this, but there's no prohibition and there's no excuse. So even if you live in a United States territory where it is illegal to grow cannabis, there is no legal issue in sprouting your own hemp seeds. You don't have to have a special license or a medical marijuana card. You can do it in large sense on your windowsill or with an inexpensive grow light, like $35 for a grow light, and keep yourself healthy by doing this. And you can also teach others how to do it. It's a big thing. I'm into community education, so that you learn how to do it and then get others to do it too. It's essentially like creating microgreens. And many people are now finding the health benefits of microgreens. So you get viable hemp seeds. Hemp seeds that you buy at the health food store are largely non-viable. So they might be a grain, sold as a grain, part of a granola. They either might have been sterilized with steam or sterilized with radiation. Fun, fun, fun. That creates carcinogens. But they are not viable. You can't stick them in the ground and have them grow. And they do this on purpose. They're like, oh, we don't want these people to grow this life-giving plant. Better sterilize these seeds. So you must get them from a viable hemp seed distributor. And I have links for that. That's why I did a whole educational series about this. And then once you have your hemp seeds, you get these trays, and you must also use sterile conditions, like have a little squirt bottle with your diluted hydrogen peroxide, keep everything super clean, keep down your mold issues, keep humidity down. Like it ain't easy, kid. It ain't easy, but you do it. And so I've been doing that in various different forms. Like I did that when I was living in an apartment. And then I did that when I first got back here to Ojai, when my cannabis plants were small. And now it's been, several months, and my cannabis plants have grown to a good size. And then when you juice cannabis plants, if you're able to grow them legally for yourself in your garden, the plant creates different types of leaves. There's a central stalk. The central stalk will eventually create the intense the flowers that contain the most intense amount of cannabinoids and medicine, and essentially the plant saps and essential oils. Then it also has fan leaves that are solar collectors. They don't have that much medicine in them, but they're absolutely so valuable for the process of juicing. So when you grow your own, you take these large fan leaves, which are often looked at as disposable compost, and you put them through a juicer. Again, slow masticating juicer, because some things like the Ninja Bullet, they whirl the plant material around very, very quickly, and they heat it, and they can decarboxylate it, and then you can unintentionally have a psychedelic effect. Also, if you make smoothies or ice cubes for yourself, don't put it into mango juice, because mango juice is one of these agonists that can make you have a psychedelic adventure when you are not intending to have one. So you find the way to be able to do this. So if you're going to grow hemp seeds for yourself and you get them to sprout, like they should be about as long as your thumb, and they create like their first real little set of leaves, and it can take like maybe 14 days or sometimes 21 days. So you have to, again, like kind of plan ahead and keep a cascade of these trays going. But once you get the hang of it, then snip, snip, snip with scissors, and then you can put them into either a juicer, slow masticating juicer, or a blender. If you do it in a blender, put it in there with frozen fruit, cold coconut milk, something that will keep your fruit cold so that it won't heat up, so that it won't get decarboxylated. And your dosage, you want to have like about a handful for yourself every day. Do these things to prevent cancer. There's lots of things that you can do to prevent cancer as well. Like there are things about what to avoid. There are some things that we simply cannot avoid. Like there's frequency poop all over. Millimeter wave stuff, like cell phone stuff. It's just all over, and it's very, very difficult, to shield yourself. EMF paint on your house, EMF protective fabrics, all these things for shielding yourself from electromagnetism. Electromagnetism affects your chakras or your light body, and it destabilizes the healthy functioning of your DNA. It's why we don't want it. It's why they do it. There's so many different ways to be able to do telecommunications without these millimeter waves. The millimeter waves and the telecommunications are a justification for opportunities to sicken humanity and opportunities to create, again, genetic portals through which things that should not be in existence can maintain a sense of semi-existence and try to influence your lives. So in my notes, I talk about really this battle between divergent levels of consciousness. One is a very low parasitic level of consciousness, the Crab Nebulans, and they are feeding off of the light and life force energy of others. The Christed individuals have their own direct connection to God, the source, to light, and to infinite energy. And you don't have to feed off of anybody else, and you wouldn't want to. It's like playing music that is totally not the right music. You're like, no, I don't want to play those notes. I don't want to steal someone else's life force. I want to have my own life force and play the right notes in reality and be experiencing the right structures in time. And so that's essentially what we're experiencing in terms of this battle against cancer. And cancer has become so prevalent in our world. It used to be something like 1 in 3 people would inevitably get it. Then it became like 60, that was 33%. Then it became like 60%. That was like 2/3. Just some cancers are just considered to be like an inevitability. And also, let me talk about skin cancer, because a lot of people are like, oh no, the sun is not your friend. It's a horrible, evil frying. It's going to fry you and give you cancer. I'm like, no, I hope you can tell from my voice. If you are not able to sense from my tone of voice, the sun is totally the son of God, our true sun, and the light from our true sun, and even the gamma rays and other high energy frequencies that come from our sun are consciousness raising foods and allies, things that you wish to be exposed to. However, we have had destabilizations within Earth's atmosphere and several different forms of sky poop and lenses and other forms of diminishment of the true consciousness signal that is the sun in the sky. And in light of that, literally, you must protect yourself from overexposure to false light. So what do? Ideally, you use a non-chemical skin protected. There's jojoba oil, carrot seed oil, all these interesting plant oils that are safe to put on your skin, safe to absorb into your skin, and they reduce the amount of radiation that is coming into you. I've also found one particular brand, there's like mineral-based skin protectants, like you want to get non-nano sized titanium dioxide, because titanium dioxide that is nano comes into your bloodstream and into your major organs, into your brain. You don't want that stuff jamming up the works. But you do want to have sometimes minerals that are on the outside of your skin that mitigate the action of the sun being so strong. And I found one type of positive skin protectant sunblock that is like not made out of a bad chemical. And so once I find that, like, I stock up on it and I use it. And so I use positive forms of skin protectant sunblocks, and I wear a giant hat. Everyone in town, so I live in Southern California. It's very, very sunny here, especially in the summertime, and it can be 100 degrees. Everyone in town knows me. I wear a giant hat with like a very big rainbow brim around it. You wear that outside, and also you limit your exposure in the middle of the day when the sun is very, very strong. You don't go out in the middle of the sun. You stay in the shade and wear a giant hat. Like, you protect yourself from overexposure. And also, I don't wear sunglasses. And there's really something to that, because we're talking about and this isn't even part of the notes, but just part of generalized health education, combination of the sun, your third eye, and melatonin production in your pineal gland. When you wear sunglasses, your pineal gland becomes confused and does not produce the same qualities and levels of melanin, which is the protective brownish colored chemical that goes into our skin that protects our skin. And it makes you tan. And some people are born with natural high amounts of melanin, and they are more protected, and usually their ancestors come from equatorial regions of our world. And then there are some people that are born with a minimum amount of melanin, and they are very sensitive to the sun. If you have a minimum amount of melanin, meaning like if you have red hair and blue eyes, then you should really limit the amount of sun exposure that you have and not go out in the middle of the day. And also, wearing sunglasses confuses your pineal gland, and it doesn't know that it needs to make more melanin because it's being exposed to so much sun. So it's actually positive to wear a hat, but not positive to use sunglasses. And then also, when I talk about sun gazing, I do it early in the day, late in the day, filtered through clouds, filtered through trees, filtered through the brim of my hat, not staring directly at the sun, like with my eyelids closed. So please know that I'm like I protect myself from overexposure to the sun, but positively. Exposure to the natural sun, like beyond the sky poop and all these other problems, positive exposure to the natural sun is anti-cancer. It's not going to give you skin cancer. Positive exposure to the natural sun is anti-cancer. But a lot of people are like, but no, my aunt is redheaded and she got cancer and we should all stay out of the sun. So you must comprehend and understand that you walk a fine balance. Like you do the sun gazing early in the morning, expose yourself to the positive infrared rays, fill your body with a type of antioxidant that then in the middle of the day, when you are exposed to blue light and your body is creating all these oxidants, you've got your antioxidants. These are anti-aging chemicals. You do good stuff with it. So it's different than the teachings of traditional medical science that says, slather yourself in sunscreen, never go out in the sun. The sun is harmful and will give you cancer. That's not truthful, but many people are developing skin cancer because of their lifestyle and because of the qualities of the sky poop and things that have been going on for a very long amount of time. Okay, and I know that there's lots and lots of questions about all of this. So the use of cannabis is one aspect of treating or preventing cancer. Let's say if a person hasn't had access to raw cannabis juice or hemp seeds or anything like that, and then they develop cancer. What do? Should you go to the doctor and have traditional chemotherapy? Again, like this is up to your choice, but I would say before you do that type of radical experience, try the intensive, it is called Rick Simpson oil, named after a person who popularized this treatment that is basically a way of creating a concentrated plant sap that you take the essential oils of cannabis, extract them from the plant and create, sometimes it is brownish and sticky, sometimes it's yellowish golden and sticky. Some people take it recreationally. It is highly psychoactive. If you are facing a disease, you should expose yourself to some level of psychoactivity. And what you want to do is take a gram, which is 1,000 milligrams of THC per day. If you can get your threshold and your, what is it called? Like when you become inured to side effects, if you can get up to the point of being able to comfortably take 1,000 milligrams per day, like you gradually raise your dosage, and then you do that for 90 days. And that has been shown to heal and treat cancer. And then you go on a maintenance dose that is lower to prevent its return. So just as an anecdote, when I lived in Prohibition era in New York State, had a person that I knew who was a relatively young person in their 30s, and even like a new mom who had just had a baby who was diagnosed with cancer. And she was given a very, very poor prognosis. And she was doing all of the traditional surgeries and other forms of oncology treatments. And through black market channels, she was able to receive this highly concentrated type of cannabis oil. And she started to take that in conjunction with these other treatments that she took along with radiation and all of these things. And the oncologist and the doctors said that she was a miracle. They're like, what are you doing? Somehow you're still alive. We don't even know how you can still be alive. And because it was prohibition, she wasn't able to say like, I'm taking cannabis oil. This is what's going on. So just recognize that it is incredibly powerful. It ended up extending her life, but she did eventually pass on, but not from cancer, but probably from the after effects of the many treatments that she took, which were all very extremely difficult on her body system. But I bring that up just because you do that and you mystify your oncologist. They're like, somehow you're not nauseated in your body because, so why not? Activated THC and cannabis in particular in high doses is a neuroprotectant that prevents neuropathy, which is the death of healthy neurological cells in chemotherapy. Peripheral, usually like the cells that are about feelings like in the bottoms of your feet or in your hands. And it protects your neurological cells, and it protects healthy cells from not only cancer, but from the effects of chemotherapy. And so when you drink raw cannabis juice, what you're doing is putting into the receptors around healthy cells all of these cannabinoids that protects them and prevents them from being harmed in any way. And the very same molecular structures go to cancer cells and tell cancer cells, press the big red button. The big red button is called apoptosis. That is programmed cell death. That's when the cell looks at its watch and says, oop, oops, time for me to die. I'm out the window. And it dismantles itself and stops being in existence. So it's kind of amazing. The very, very same molecule protects healthy cells, but tells cancerous, diseased cells that they must go out of existence. Cancer is not just a random mutation. This is part of my notes. And I know I'm almost at the two-hour limit, and I'm going to wrap it up soon. But cancer is not just a weird random mutation. Your body has mutations all the time. It has strange formations here that do not match your idealized format here. And mutations are not necessarily deadly, and they don't necessarily proliferate into cancer. What cancer is when all of these mutants that are like rampant individuals, like I'm out for number one and I'm not listening to anyone, all of a sudden start getting together and working together to create a tumor and take blood supply from healthy cells and then grow more tumors and get working together. So in a sense, it is a rampant individualist anarchist that then decides to somehow put aside its anarchistic tendencies and work together. That doesn't happen. Do you understand? Like the anarchists in the world are not going to be like, I know that we're all rampant individualists and I want to do it my way and you want to do it your way, but let's all put our differences aside and let's all work together to, you know, bring down the system. Like they don't do that. They're like, I'm a rampant individualist. I'm a rampant individualist. Let's fight it out endlessly. That's mutations. So first of all, I'm full of mutations. Mutations are not by definition harmful or harming longevity in the body. Mutations usually either work themselves out or are so small that they don't affect the entirety of your body system. And what cancer actually represents is a bunch of antithetical cells that are antithetical to you being the driver of your car. And they're like, yeah, we're not only out for number one, we're out to bring down the system, which is you. They're out to bring down the system, and they're not listening to you as the driver. You're talking to your cells and you're like, be healthy, be healthy, be healthy. They're like, we're not listening to you, screw you. We're listening to the Crab Nebulans who are speaking to us through millimeter waves or whatever, Bluetooth from the phone or television waves or any of these things. And there is an emotional intellectual component to incepting cancer in people. That cancer is in some ways, and I talk about like right now, everyone's bathed in poo-poo frequencies. So don't take it to heart too much. But in other times before we had so much frequency poop, you know, what's really going on is something that is a hypnotic trigger, like all these run for the cure, pink ribbons. They are reminders of cancer, as opposed to things that fight against cancer. They're reminders of it, constantly triggering a person's expectation that, oh, it happened to that guy and it'll happen to you. And same thing with like celebrities who do preventative, you know, body part removals or any of those things. All of those are a concerted effort to make it seem as if it is inevitable and it happened to others and it'll happen to you as well. And even when you go to have your medical history recorded by your general doctor, who goes through the checklist and say, does your mom have cancer? Does your dad have cancer? Does your grandma have cancer? Does your grandpa have cancer? And anytime like you're asked these questions, there's the implied basis of presumption that because it's a genetic disease, if it's in your family, you're going to get it. But now even regular medical doctors are becoming much more enlightened into the truth of what is genetic behavior, epigenetics. And if you need a medical doctor more biologically objective materialist based than me, because I'm much more of a intuitive walk-in, check out the work of Bruce Lipton, who has done wonderful research science all about epigenetics. Epigenetics means the code that rules the code. Identical twins come from the exact same egg. They have an identical genetic code, but they don't develop identical diseases. Just because one twin develops cancer does not mean the other twin will necessarily develop cancer. Why is that? Maybe they were exposed to different food or different chemicals or different this or different that. Yes. And maybe they also made different choices, had different feeling states, and played the instrument of their body differently, because epigenetics is basically something where you have the scrolls of your DNA either tightly rolled up and tightly scrolled so that they are unreadable by RNA messengers and cannot build a giant tumor, or unfurled and easily read. So if you have a potential for cancer in your body and your scrolls for the chapter on cancer are all rolled up and no one ever reads them, then it is just a dormant potential. But if you really think about it and really focus on it and think it happened to that guy over there and there's a pink ribbon over there, and then get exposed to many carcinogens and swim around in 5G frequency poop, then the scrolls might unroll and might create cancer. It's not an inevitability. It is actually something that is highly influenceable by you, influenceable by your feeling state and by your lifestyle. And cancer is not a death sentence, and there's many things you can do if you develop it. But the point that I'm making is that genetic fatalism or determinism says, if it's written in your code, you're out of luck, kid, it's going to happen. But then now science has become, in the past 10 years, more sophisticated and recognized, oh, just because it's written in your genetic code does not mean that it's necessarily going to happen. So if grandfather had whatever cancer of the pinky toe, it does not mean that you will necessarily have it as well. And it also does not mean that your children will have it either. So it's time we break the tendency with our expectations of passing on these very negative genetic characteristics to future generations. And we all, as experiencers embodied in this world, we must work towards the complete removal of these frequency doo-doo emission devices that are for telecommunications, but are for something much, much deeper. We're bathed in a satellite network of them at this point. And it's not just humans. There are also many other organisms. Salmon and fish develop these types of tumors. And same thing, humans, dogs, cats. It's not just deer like walking around in the woods develop it. So it's not just humans. The frequency warfare that our entire biosphere has been subjected to has caused a proliferation of this particular disease that is not just a genetic disease that's random. It is a genetic crime, and it is created and perpetrated by criminals into this world. And you must do everything you possibly can to protect yourselves and your loved ones from these criminal behaviors. So ingesting raw cannabis is really great. And I'll just do a couple of other shout outs to chlorine dioxide, an amazing healing tool. The anti-parasite medicine known as Panicure, which is also known as fenebrazole. Some people find that there is a parasitic nature, to cancer. And also there seems to be a fungal mold type of aspect to cancer. So several different types of anti-fungus and anti-mold products too, like grapeseed oil and other things that you can safely take systemically to get that stuff out of your body. And also, of course, not eating processed foods that contain carcinogens, and also staying away from sugar. So as an epileptic, I stay away from sugar. When I started to learn about the connection between sugar and epilepsy, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't eat that stuff anymore. And that was like 2006. So I was still learning about food and diet and the food supply here, and even things hadn't been fully genetically modified at that point. But then I started to read labels, and I'm like, there's sugar in everything. There's sugar in this, there's sugar in this, sugar in salad dressing. Like, why is there sugar in salad dressing? You're not supposed to put sugar in there. There's sugar in everything. It is a food additive. So essentially what you need to do at this point is prepare your own foods. Do not buy processed foods. Do not buy things that have food additives. Eat out minimally unless it is a very reputable, food establishment, and see if you can grow and produce your own foods, or eat locally from those who do grow and produce their own foods, as that is where you will find the least contaminated foods in the food supply. When I recorded this 10 years ago, it wasn't even as bad as it is now. Very, very, very challenging to be able to find non-contaminated food in this time and place. And all of this is not by accident. And all of this is part of an agenda for human consciousness suppression. But don't let it get you down. Put your spine up. Don't let it get you down, because there are so many things that you can do. And the real thing focus on in my notes is joy. So, cannabis really does help to give you joy. The psychoactive or psychedelic aspect of it can make you feel blissful and joyful, but even the raw juice, it gives you a sense of vitality, joyfulness. And so for me, like, I'm in my joy and I'm in my bliss when I put on beautiful music in my studio, put on, I'm painting my painting. There's beautiful sunlight streaming across my workstation, and I'm feeling bliss and I'm feeling uplift. That you must cultivate joy in your life. So in the past, when people got cancer, it was like, that's it, you've got a death sentence. Your regular activities are over. Now you're just going to be like a sad, victimized, diminished sense of yourself. And that is definitely like how you get into the grave and how you die. And what you need to do at all times, whether you are healthy or whether you've been diagnosed, is to go towards joy and to cultivate joy in your life. And that means continuing to do and doing in the first place all of the life experiences that are the most important to you. So substances and food and frequencies, that's very materialistic. Now I'm talking about quality of life, because although I don't think that there's validity anymore to saying like, if you develop brain cancers because you had something to learn from that, or if you develop pinky toe cancer, that then you have something to learn from that. Like, I really don't agree with those assertions, because we're in such a polluted world that just healthy, innocent people can get it. But if you are diagnosed with it, you must cultivate joy in your life. You cannot think of it as a death sentence and you're not going to do your regular activities anymore. You must continue and focus on the things that matter the most to you. Like, it can be being a caregiver to your family and being a great parent. It can be being an artist or a musician. Too many people put off their art or their music for their retirement. They're like, first I have to do 40 years of drudgery. Then I can finally start exploring art and music and all the things that I really need to do. You need to do that now. You need to do that now, independent of any diagnosis, predating any kind of diagnosis. And then if you got a diagnosis, never let your diagnosis say, well, that's it. Now I'm never going to become an artist or a musician or do the things that are important to me, or visit wherever, go on a trip to see the Aurora Borealis or the Eiffel Tower, any of those things that are important to you in life, you must do them. Because the distortion of time through this disease is not just in growing body parts that aren't supposed to be there, like tumors or something like that, or blood cells. It is in taking you off your path from being the person you're supposed to be and doing the things you're supposed to do. You must follow your joy. You must cultivate joy. You must do the things you're supposed to do, be on your life path, and also encourage others to be on their life path. Hold on one second. Let me just close this door. Hold on one second. Apologies for that brief interruption, and I will wrap it up soon. Let me just be sure to get through. Yeah, so back to this. Melissa says they took hemp away and added toxins to the water, banned raw milk after World War II. Exactly. So raw milk is wonderful, good stuff. Pasteurized milk is actually not that good and not that digestible for the body. Again, when I lived in upstate New York, I was part of a raw milk speakeasy because it was illegal there. Here in California, it's actually legal. And I was amazed when I found it on the shelf. I was like, raw milk, like what paradise do I live in? But I used to be part of a speakeasy where it's like, hey, you got the raw milk, you got the raw milk. You bring your own jar and you kind of like get it filled up. It's very funny. But yes, raw milk, raw dairy, raw cheese, these things actually are very health-giving and life-promoting. Melissa says they also took away natural ether gathering energies like natural antennae, took away bells, changed music, and probably took more. Absolutely. So what else happened after World War II was the standardization of 440 as the pitch for the A note. Let's turn on the piano and play an A note. Dun, 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 dun. Here's an A. So this is my electric piano. It's tuned to 440. What we're listening to is actually an anti-life music. It's like, no more, stop killing us with music. This is an A note at 432 hertz. Yeah, so there's 432, 528, 7 something, all these different types of frequencies that are much more life affirming and life protecting than the 440 hertz, which is antithetical. And that's just music. And then when we get to things like millimeter waves and other forms of frequency pollution in our world, when we get to a lot more disruptive to cellular organization and the continuation of coherence and longevity in your life. Melissa also says, farmers today don't have information about how good hemp is for animals and land. The info didn't get passed down. They think, well, if it worked, I would have heard about it from other farmers. Definitely. And also, in order to grow hemp around here in United States, it's an extensive process. Like, it used to be federally illegal. Now it is legal in some states, but you need extensive licensure. So that's it. It's $20,000 for a license to grow hemp in California. That's like, so I have a microgreens business. And if I wanted to grow hemp microgreens and sell them to people, I would have to get a license that costs $20,000. Then I would have to get another license. That's a license to process hemp. That's another $20,000. Then I would have to get another license to carry hemp in my car and drive it to the farmer's market. That's another $20,000. And I would have to wire my entire home and processing center and garden with these cameras that are connected to like a central surveillance place. That's going to make sure that my hemp is only hemp, and everything would have to be tested extensively to make sure that it's just hemp with no THC or only like 0.3 THC and nothing else in there. Very, very, very prohibitive to be able to do that. And that is why I get these wonderful tinctures that come from Virginia, where they have less licensing, it's less prohibitive, it's much less expensive. So I buy these tinctures and also just the raw molecules and mix them into my own tinctures. And then I also have my own garden. And so I do these other things with commercially available products and raw hemp seeds that I sprout. And then I also grow my own garden. And that's the freedom of being able to live here. And one of the beautiful things that I do and that I encourage others to do in California, it is legal to gift cannabis or hemp to others. No money is exchanged. So I have neighbors that have been like, oh, I will gift you with leaves. Or I will gift you with, you know, whatever, an additional, some product from my garden. I grew too much, have some. It is exactly what we are supposed to be doing. It is a Christ substance, and we must act as Christ in the generosity and love and share with thy neighbor. That's the rule, the golden rule. Treat thy neighbor as thyself. Share thy hemp with thy neighbor. Truly. So you gift it to other people and then you receive it when you need it. And it's really, really, really beautiful. Trish says, hi, Aurora, beautiful information. Thank you. At this point, given the seeds are way manipulated, I get it. It would be a good idea to FRL them with ones. You want to, I don't know what I would suggest in terms of, she's suggesting a liver flush. That can definitely help. Sun protectants cause cancer, definitely. You know, there's a lot of genetically modified seeds. So as one more cautionary tale, I have non-genetically modified seeds for my own garden for both tomatoes and cannabis and hemp. And I won't grow anything that's genetically modified, but the stuff that you get at dispensaries at this point is genetically modified. And you have to watch out for stuff that is Delta 8, Delta 9, all these different molecules that are transformations and extractions of the original hemp or cannabis plant. Buyer beware. That's all I can say. You don't really know what you're getting in terms of the original plant structure being genetically modified and then molecular manipulation of extracts from that plant. Really, really difficult right now to know what exactly you're getting. And a lot of these imitators of the cannabis molecule are actually not awakening of your Christ. They're the opposite. They're antichrist. They will close down your Christ chakra up here. So a lot of the cartridges that are these vaporizer cartridges that you get from dispensaries that have CBD or THC or mixes of the both, I would really say avoid them because I've tried them in previous years and I found them to be very unnatural, have a very, very different intense feeling. And I think that they were genetically modified. I think that they're meant to reduce your consciousness and reduce Christ connection as opposed to encourage consciousness expansion and connect you back to Christ. Buyer beware. I stay away from almost all of those, artificial things at this point, and really just try to go with what my friends and myself grow in my garden. And I share my seeds with people for that reason too. I'm like, here, have non-genetically modified seeds. This is really important. Pedro's joking about sheets of aluminum foil to block out the fake sun. I know, there's all sorts of things from EMF protective fabrics, literally house paint. You can paint your whole house in EMF protective fabrics. At this point, it's so all pervasive. I don't think that it is practical to try to block it out. So I think that we must perform these different types of spiritual ablutions or purifications and cleansings and find ways to strengthen our energy field against the millimeter waves. And I do that every day, and then sing about it as a loud genetic opera singer to all of you. And I hope you can hear me in all that I do. It is not something that I articulate with words, but it is something that I exemplify in my daily energetic behavior and my dance. Melissa says, I heard that gold keeps the body young and healthy for long times. Invert to our time and place where we are afflicted with too much aluminum accumulation in our bodies, causing unhealth and unlongevity. Stars that are new have much gold, but stars that are dying have much aluminum, was the example given. Fascinating. Yes. Gold is life-giving, and yes, you can take a monoatomic gold solution that is super health-giving, super life-giving, and also helps to awaken your pineal gland and your inner Christ connection. That's great. And Trish, I'll read this comment. Trish is a huge proponent of urine therapy, and I only sometimes edit when I'm reading from the chat because I'm very clear. I don't want to destabilize people by giving them partial information that is not necessarily on their path. So we should do a whole talking conversation sometime about what it actually is to give people good information about what that is, not just small selective tidbits. That's why I sometimes don't read everything, because I'm like, I don't know if I can say that and have it be received effectively. I don't want people to get just the partial story and not the full story. Pedro says, great serving of lasagna with a side dish of raw cannabis today. Love lasagna. You know, lasagna is pretty much made out of raw cannabis. That's a big ingredient in lasagna. Melissa says, be careful about EMF protection, paint, wallpaper. Don't bring your phone in that room or else to bombard your body within that room. Exactly. If you create a cage and then put your phone in the cage and then everything is bouncing around. I really struggled with this when I felt in 2014, increase in chemtrails, increase in frequency, poop crapola, all of these things. I tried to protect myself from it. And I literally did have like aluminum foil protections around me. And then at a certain point, I was like, this is not a way to live. And I started to find what are the ways that I can protect myself internally. This was a big one for me. This cup is made out of 100% shungite, and it is made for putting your water in here. And I drank out of this for years. I haven't really been drinking out of it that much because small particles of shungite actually accumulate in your body. They are switched out for the radioactive particles that are in your body that are cesium-137, I believe. That is what comes from Fukushima. So I didn't even mention Fukushima, but that started as a slow motion disaster in 2011 and is still ongoing. The continual leakage of human-created radioactive waste into the Pacific Ocean. That affects the entire biosphere through the water cycle of evaporation, as those tiny particles are evaporated with rain clouds and have been shown in the United States to be as far east as the milk in cows in Vermont, which is on the East Coast. So 3 or 4 or 6,000 miles away from Fukushima. That stuff is being found in the food supply. So shungite is a mineral that has these little carbon-60 naturally occurring formations that you can take C60, but again, buyer beware, because I don't know if stuff is adulterated or weird in some way, but the best way is to take noble elite shungite, either put it in your drinking water or find powders that don't have any occlusions and be able to put that into cosmetics. It is absorbed through your skin, a soap. I drank out of this for years and I still have elite shungite in my water jugs. The point is, when you have a particle of cesium-137 in your bones, the shungite will swap itself out and be like, I'm going to switch places. Now you will have shungite in your bones and the body will release the cesium-137. It accumulates. So if you do this for several years, you will have shungite internally. I've been doing this for several years. And at a certain point, my body said, you don't have to drink out of this cup anymore. Like, you've got enough shungite in you. But I have it here right around my computer because this area of my room, we've got like the Wi-Fi router, the computer, all of the music equipment, everything that's emitting lots and lots of frequency waves. And then I also have this. If you have a router, you can put a tile of shungite on it. It is relatively inexpensive. This was under $20, but I keep this next to my computer, and I actually put all of my drinking vessels, my coffee cup on top of there. And so just the energetic structure of the shungite is transferred into the water, into the coffee, into the juice, and then into me. These are positive things. You can also wear shungite. You can also place it in your environment. I didn't even mention all the different stuff I do. I've got organites everywhere. Organites, shungites, intentional use of crystals, all of these different things to create a positive force field, and flying rainbow lasagna. I dance my flying rainbow lasagna in this room all the time, and I find that I have a very positive vortex of energy. I visited a house that I used to live in across town recently, and I'm like, oh, there's still a lasagna vortex rotating here. Like, yep, it's still going. Yeah, so it can be very positive and powerful. These are non-physical practices. So please recognize that these are not necessarily things that are measurable by objective materialists, but are very, very impactful. And scientists in Russia and Asia, I think, are more open than scientists in Europe and United States to this type of research into subtle waves and frequencies and how that affects DNA. But your DNA is an antenna, and it is affected by and afflicted by subtle waves like the stuff that comes off of your TV or your 5G crapola, and also subtle waves that come off of shungite crystals. Ibomac is an amazing product that is out of Germany that is crystalline based and is a way of creating a protective force field around yourself so that you can walk around even in the world where there's so many of these negative and anti-life waves and frequencies and not be negatively affected by them. Thank you for being here, Melissa. She has to sign off, but thank you for being here. She says, tell your body only to listen to yourself. I'm trying to strengthen my relationship with my body and my 7 new chakra buddies. That's exactly it. Body talk to yourself. Tell yourself, I am safe, I am healthy, I am well, and be a badass. Be a cosmic badass about it. Be like, oh, no. We don't even entertain the possibility of getting diseases, poop crapola, or anything negative or antithetical in our body. 5G is also meant to really cause a lot of aging and cellular decrepitude, premature cellular decrepitude. Talk to your bodies. Don't allow that to happen. Don't say, oh, I'm really looking old, or so-and-so is really looking old, or this or that is really happening. No. We have to talk to ourselves in every single way to bring up vitality and to cultivate life-giving energy. And that's also a big part of the joy. The joy, you need to stay young and joyful. You need to stay buoyant. You need to keep your energy and not go into sadness, despair, and depression. So what I share with you here in this video, I'm always intending for your highest inspiration, being energized. I want you to go out there and be like, there's solutions. I'm staying healthy and alive. Go me. Not in any way thinking like, that's it. Life is a grim death march and I'm going to fall over in the grave. Like, will it happen today or will it happen in 5 years? Like, it's inevitable. Please be in joy. Please love your loved ones. Definitely like play with your dogs and cats and children and be as joyful as you possibly can be. That is really how you fight the Crab Nebulans. I didn't mention that enough, but it's in my notes. The Crab Nebulans are just pure hatred. They hate, period. That is their religion. Like, you know, I was joking about Christianity, love thy neighbor. That's truthful. Love is the religion of Christianity. It is to love one another as thyself. And their Crab Nebulan religion is hate everyone. And they literally beam particles of hatred at people, at living creatures. They just hate. And they don't hate you for any reason. It's not because you're black, white, or Christian or Muslim or anything like that. Like, they just hate, period. It's just what they do. It's just what they are. So don't take it personally, but also don't take shit. Pardon me for saying that. I always try to keep it clean. Sorry for anyone who's a parent watching with their children. Be secure in your boundaries and don't allow that hatred. Don't internalize on that hatred. Recognize the origins of where it comes from. Do not validate it. It's cosmic crime. It comes from a bunch of cosmic criminals. and really try to maintain joy and love and bliss, and help others to be in joy and love and bliss, and also to, transcend fear, because I think this disease, also cancer, has a lot of fear affiliated with it. People are afraid that they're going to get it, and if they've got it, then they're afraid based upon what is going to happen to them. So try to assuage that fear, because even if people have it, there's also, like I said, that fenebrazole has been shown to help people that even have stage 4 metastasis, and is readily available, and something that has had some miraculous improvements in people's lives. So I am going to wrap it up, although there's no sun, so I don't know if I will be able to do sun gazing today. I'm going to wrap it up and be able to take my dog for positive things that happen outside, the release of liquids and solids that happen outside. If there's any more comments or questions, now is a perfect time. And I hope that I hit all of the main points. I'm going to share these notes. These notes, I always keep them in the PDF. The PDF is always linked in the YouTube videos. I'll share my entire notes in the YouTube description if it's not too long for their system. Patrons, I will be sure to share it with you as well. It's already been sent out, is the emails. And again, if there's someone that's in your life that that's been affected by this disease, please, I hope that you will share this with them, and that I hope that it will help them on their journey, and that this information is uplifting and good guidance for anyone who needs it. Just making sure to give anybody a moment, because I know sometimes you're typing in the chat. I don't want to turn it off before you're done typing in the chat. So I'm just giving anybody a moment. If you want to unmute, if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to say something in the chat, now is a perfect time.
I missed a bunch of this, but thank you for always sharing and updating.
So welcome.
Yeah.
So welcome.
And I did want to say one thing, that for a while they stopped with the chemtrails.
Yeah.
And now it's the East Coast is crazy. I was wondering about the West Coast.
Same thing here. We're up and down.
There?
I'm Southern California. Sometimes we have times of blue sky, and sometimes we have very, very beautiful return to the deep blue sky. And then sometimes we have so much dripping sky poop. It is so disheartening. And I've noticed it is in conjunction with weather patterns, because we've had unusual, excessive storms and wet weather. And so part of it is part of those, like, engineering storms and migrating storms and stuff like that. Very, very challenging stuff, because I definitely notice my own spiritual connection diminishing on sky poop days, and everybody's more angry and inflamed, and everything is harder and more difficult. Those are very, very turbulent days.
Yes, today, yes. We've never had a dry spring like this. I mean, it feels like in the 40s during the Dust Bowl. It's that dry.
Got it. Yeah. And so some of what they spray is a desiccant similar to glyphosate. So sometimes you get that sprayed from above, which is horrible, like being sprayed with a carcinogen like that from above. And that is also a real problem with people trying to grow their own healthy, non-genetically modified foods outside.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a biggie.
It is a biggie. You can make shungite water for your plants. Please know, whatever you're growing outside,
thank you.
You soak your water, and you can also do a foliar spray. So you can do the water that you water on their roots with shungite. You can do a foliar spray with shungite. You can mix tiny particles of shungite into their soil. They will live better, and they will also produce food that is better for you. You can put organites around your garden. You can, kind of like put a grid. You create an energetic positive force field around your garden. And also you might want to consider small canopies or protective shelters or something like that, like growing inside of a little hoop house or something like that, just to prevent them from getting too much sky poop on them.
Yeah. So shungite, you buy like a powder, is that it?
There's all sorts of different ways you can get it. It comes from Russia, and I used to only be able to get it through an Etsy shop from Russia, but now it's in a lot of crystal shops and a lot of health-based shops. So if you're going to drink it in your own water, you must get the product called Noble Elite Shungite that does not have any occlusions that might be dissolvable solids that you don't want to go into your body. But if you are going to use it for wearing jewelry, placing around your house.
I'm using for my plants.
Good. You can get any grade of shungite, and you can pretty much get a powdered shungite and then either mix it in with your garden soil, sprinkle it in a perimeter around your garden, or if you get chunks, put it in your watering can. You put it in your watering can and then fill your watering can with water, and the shungite goes into the water, and your plants will actually thrive and love you. And then your plants will be structured with this wonderful shungite water. And then if you eat your plants, you eat those tomatoes or strawberries, then you will have that inside of you. It's win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always something to balance out everything.
And one more thing that will really help everybody's garden: foliar spray of your garden with a product called fulvic acid. Fulvic acid. Yeah. It is a humic material that actually comes from ancient glacial deposits that helps plants to uptake minerals, because the sky poop, often excess aluminum, prevents plants from effectively getting their minerals. Plants become stunted or do not have good taste and nutritional availability because they didn't get their minerals. So when you spray them on their leaves, or if you put fulvic acid on your skin, your body actually absorbs from your intestines all of the positive minerals in your body, and it can help bring down a lot of intestinal inflammation too. So if you're a human, you can drink a product that is called Restore, that is fulvic minerals for your intestinal tract. You can also do fulvic foot baths. If you're a plant, get some fulvic acid that does not have to be food grade, just for plants. Put it in a foliar sprayer, spray your plants. So spray them with shungite, spray them with fulvic acid.
Okay, fulvic, yeah, and fulvic has like doubled or tripled in price lately.
I totally believe it. And that's the other thing. Everything good and healthy is way more expensive for you. Eggs, fresh pastured eggs, and everything that is bad for you is cheap and easily available, like whatever $1 frozen pizzas. Just use that as your barometer, everyone, for whether or not you want to ingest something. I know it's very, very challenging. So also you might need to work a couple of side gigs to be able to afford all of these good things that we need for our bodies, but you do it. You do it. Thank you. That's actually a beautiful question, because I'm very big on advocating for people's personal gardens. And contact me if you want the hemp seed sprouting workshop that I did. It's not listed on YouTube because I don't know if I have legal problems with doing that. So I have it listed as a separate video series on my private Vimeo. So for anybody who's a patron, anybody that I'm connected to, send me your email. I'll send you the entire PDF, the how-to, the products list, and the hemp seed sprouting workshop, because I want you all to be facilitated and be happy and blissful and joyful. I have to go. Someone's actually calling me, and I'm like, oh, that's my cosmic phone call is coming in. So let me sign off for right now. Thank you so much, everyone. My profound love. You're welcome, Lucy. We love you very much. And my love and encouragement. Oops, that's my phone because it's vibrating. Encouragement to everyone to be joyful, be blissful, and please don't be disheartened, even though we live in very fraught times. Try to cultivate your joy and keep your body as healthy as you possibly can, and your loved ones and your family and your pets and your garden. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay strong.